Hi, I'm Len Epp from Leanpub, and in this episode of the Leanpub podcast, I'll be interviewing Alexey Krivitsky. Based in Munich, Alexey is co-creator of Org Topologies, which helps companies learn, adapt, and perform to become 10 times more impactful and relevant with people and AI. Alexey has spent over 20 years redesigning organizations from startups to enterprises as a software engineer, agile practitioner, and organizational designer. He co-created Org Topologies, a structural framework used globally, and co-authored 10x Org, a best-selling book on fit-for-purpose organizational design that we'll be talking about today. You can subscribe to the Org Topologies channel on YouTube at Org Topologies and check out their website at orgtopologies.com. In the book that we're going to be talking about today, Alexey and his colleagues, Craig Larman and Roland Flem, have provided a business novel with woven 10x org theory, principles, elevating katas, and case studies, drawing on the author's decades of experience in product development, management, and consulting. In this interview, we're going to talk about Alexey's background and career, his interests, and the book. And at the end, we'll talk a little bit about his experience co-authoring the book and publishing it and to great success. So thank you very much, Alexey, for being on the Leanpub podcast.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for having our book on the shelf. And by the way, thank you for all the work you do, because this paper book I have now from Amazon, actually it was generated via Leanpub. So you guys are doing an amazing work.
Thank you so much for that. I'm looking forward to talking about that a little bit later on because we were so. I mean, one of the great things about doing, working for Leanpub is that, great authors like you and your co-authors just show up out of nowhere sometimes, often with great questions, often finding bugs, things like that. And so, it's always great to meet new people. And in service of that sort of mission, I always like to start these interviews by asking people for their origin story. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about where you grew up and how you found your way into the career that you've built for yourself.
Yeah, thanks for asking. And I see you are very well prepared. So I was born in Kiev, Ukraine, and was raised in a family of Soviet engineers. So I'm a third generation engineer, but the first software engineer in the family. And started at the era of heavyweight, like pre-agile stuff, RUP, rational unified process, CMMI. So I saw the other side of software development, where you would produce specifications for a month, only then to discover on the day you are moving into the implementation phase that there were core mistakes in the document, and then you have to reschedule. So that was the beginning of my career as a software engineer. And then I essentially very quickly got promoted to lead few developers, and I had no idea how you do that at the age of 25. Like, I knew how to code barely in few languages, but I had no idea how you lead people. And I was like, I don't even think if Google existed back in the days, but I was like using some search engine, Alta Vista or what was there, MSN, to find like how do you actually do that. And I found that stuff called Extreme Programming, XP. And then I figured out like there's an Agile manifesto and all that. So I went heavy on that Agile stuff, because it seemed to was giving me answers on how would I lead people in the most like lightweight manner, and how would I solve those problems with the specifications becoming like outdated quite soon. So I got very quickly early in my career introduced to the other side of software development, the lightweight, the agile ways of working. And now I'm based in, so that was back in the days when I was in Ukraine, Kiev, and now I live in Munich, Germany, since 13 years here. So I moved before war and everything started, having now my family here. And now I call myself an organizational consultant, just to highlight that I think I know a few things on how would you redesign your organizations, to increase their fit for purpose. And if it is agility, then I believe I have some ideas how you'd go about creating agile organizations and so forth.
Thank you very much for sharing that really great story. That's really great to hear. And one thing, I have a couple of questions. One curious thing about this podcast over the years is that it's become basically, depending on the sort of like location of origin and time of origin of the guest, it's become a bit of a time capsule of
Yeah.
developments in technology and stuff like that. So I remember interviewing someone once from who grew up in Crimea,
Yeah.
and his experience of learning to be a programmer was like waking up at 2 in the morning when the power came on.
Yeah.
So he could use his computer, and he wrote out his code on paper. And I had another guest who was from he was from Moscow. So I'm given the time, the kind of countries identities are different, so that's why I'm bringing that up. But his first remote job was in 1993, because he grew up in a family of kind of chemical engineers, but he'd become a computer programmer. And when everything opened up, all of a sudden all these Americans were like, "Oh my God, Russia is full
Yeah.
of highly trained engineers who want to work and are really good at it."
Yeah.
And so that was happened. So what would just with that for context, what was your first computer that you had, or that you had available to you to work with? Because it
Yeah. So my first computer, I think it was a Soviet copy of X8088. Was a XT, I think 86 or 88 was a. So you had to plug it to your TV set, and you had to plug these big blocks of memory cards. I don't know how many kilobytes of that, and then there was a keyboard, yeah, that was my first experience. I was maybe 12, 13 when my dad bought me that one, and of course it was before I learned how to program, but it was fun. It was DOS 3.0. So I'm not from like your friends like doing a punch cards and all that. I grew up
right.
already with Microsoft, but before the Windows era. Yeah, so was my first computer. Just you would put a diskette to boot, and you would put another one to choose a game, and sometimes you need to swap them because there was some issue with yeah. So that was my first thing, and I loved it. Actually, I thought I should become a chemist or a biologist, and I was always in my school. I was in a biochemistry, like gymnasiums and all that, only to discover 2 years before graduating that I actually don't like that much anymore, and I'd rather become a software engineer. But all my friends back in like who actually wanted to go into engineering, they had already been heavy on math and physics, and I was like lagging behind. Nevertheless, I was able to enter the University of Ukraine and do my computer science degree, and yeah.
Yeah, that leads me to thank you very much for sharing that. It's really awesome. I mean, it's there's some people who are punch cards. There's one guest we had, a guy named Jerry Weinberg. I think
Oh
he
yeah,
was
sure.
he was the first computer he ever used, because his first job was being a computer, like kind of doing calculations basically. He was of that vintage. So it's always great to hear those stories. One
Wow,
and so that
Jerry is a big guy. I read his consulting books and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, very, very interesting kind of story, and love to talk. We were fortunate enough to have him on the podcast
Yeah.
before he passed away a few years ago, and just a great guy.
Thank you.
Um, I have two, so that leads me to two questions though. One is, so I did a deep dive on your LinkedIn, and there's a really interesting entry there which says solo developer of first intranet stock trade system on the Ukrainian stock
Crazy.
exchange.
Yes, crazy,
So
right?
I really wanted to ask you about that. So what was that? I mean, because one thing again about this sort of like talk, I joke about the vintage, but like there were times when you could be the first person to do something, and you could be like 25 or 20, and
Yeah.
you knew how to use the computers, so you got to do
And it was before OpenClaw and Mac Minis on your desks
it. Yeah.
and all that. And actually, it's funny because it was just a few weeks ago. I remembered that, and I decided to add it to my LinkedIn just essentially for fun. But you were checking just recently. Yeah. So I got a girlfriend, and her mother was a programmer, and she got a friend working at this Ukrainian stock exchange right in the center in the downtown. If you were in Kiev, it's between these two wonderful churches. So Sophia Church and another one, like right in the heart of in this old building. And I So your ex-colleague was looking for somebody to help him develop that intranet thing on Delphi
Mhm.
6 or something. And I was into the Delphi because I was doing some student work, and I got introduced, and they asked me how much money I will charge for that development, and I said like $1,000. And I said, okay, but half will be paying you regularly, and the half as a bonus will give you only once you finish.
Okay.
It was the deal, but back in the days, it was like 99-ish. You could rent a flat for $100 in Kiev. So, having $1,000 as a student, I could enjoy my life very well with my then girlfriend and my skiing hobbies and all that. So I went for that, and well, essentially, that guy who hired me did not code much. He would be giving me some tasks on weekly basis, and I would just sit at home and code, and like having no idea how would you build these systems at all. And then once a week or once in 2 weeks, I would come to him with a diskette with an archive, and we would open up and like unzip it or something, and I would show him my progress. And well, and then of course it took me more time than it was planned, and it took me a whole year to actually build it for $500. Um, and I had to innovate a lot. I remember some details like I don't want to go now, but actually I think I went beyond all the limitations of Delphi, and eventually I got paid the rest, the bonus, the organ accepted, and he was running that system for 10 years after that. So that was actually
Wow.
in production, but I never saw it in production. I was never invited to see like how this stock exchange actually works. I was always he would always take me to his like special behind the scene room, and we would do our developers talks in there. I have no idea how it worked, but apparently it worked, and it was before like actually internet publicly available in Kiev. So I have no idea.
That's fascinating. That's fascinating. So you're probably kind of like famous, the people at the stock
I don't
exchange.
know. For the bugs in the system, I'm famous, but there was no my name in there mentioned. So
Oh, you didn't leave a signature somewhere buried inside?
I can't remember, maybe, but I was a pretty like honest
Yeah.
and well, a good executor. So I think I did not do anything special there.
Mm.
I could have actually buy myself some stocks, by with that thing, but I did not.
Well, thanks very much for sharing that really great story. That's really awesome. I remember the days of being in college and like calculating things by the month I could rent and stuff like that. That's how much I made today. And
Yeah,
that's very, very
yeah.
cool. So the other question that bringing that up led me to want to ask you is a question that comes up on the podcast relatively often, given the guests we have and the books they write, which is if you were starting out now
Mm.
intending to have a career like the one you've had, or and you're in the midst of, would you do a 4-year computer, like a computer science degree at university?
Yeah. It was actually 6 years computer
Oh,
science for us in Ukraine. We are more. That's why maybe we are better
sure.
engineers than some
Hmm.
other. No, but well, especially like now, 2026, April 29. I don't know. I was just checking my archive, and I saw my photo at my first job. I'm like sitting, my keys on the keyboard, and there's a huge monitor, and my job was to type in code, right? And now in my terminal, I see, Claude Opus doing that for me, probably with better quality, uh, definitely way faster, definitely living the same level of tech debt and bugs as a normal human would do. So not better, not worse. So I don't know. Like I have 2 kids. I frankly have no idea what should I recommend them. Um, like the world is changing faster than I think I can think of that. And your question was whether I would start like going into actually the university for that. Would really depend how hands-on those professors are. And in my time, they were not hands-on at all. And we taught them Java and other things because they did ADA 86 or something like, so would really depend on what kind of education there is and whether they actually take you to a real enterprise where you can see like how like real development is being done, not just laboratory exercises. So it should be really hands-on because the thing is changing now every week. Like every week there's something new. How would you ever update your curriculum, right, in the university at that speed? Just completely impossible. So maybe not. Maybe not computer science degree, but some engineering degree is good because it like,
Mm.
I have now engineering brain. So I
Yeah.
don't care which language to use, which computer to use. I'm an engineer. And that I think comes with a proper engineering degree and spending years doing math and physics and all that. Um, so like maybe just going for physics or applied math at this stage is a better option because coding is like a solved task already, right? But knowing math and physics would stay with you forever, no matter what LLMs can do tomorrow with a new drop of a release. Difficult though.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for that really good answer. And it's, you're really capturing kind of the kind of spirit of the I mean, I want to say the time, but like the day. Because as you say,
Exactly.
things are changing so quickly. And I was just talking with an old friend in town last night, and his son is 5 years old, and he's like, I don't know. It's difficult to know what advice and guidance to give
Yeah.
about, like they're still like childhood is still childhood, but,
Yeah.
of course, but, with when it comes to the long term and kind of college and stuff like that, like things are changing so fast. Um,
I've heard becoming a plumber is a good one because very unlikely to be replaced by humanoid robots and all that. So like physical world and a physical space is one option. Another one is some hardcore science, that always be valuable. Like these two extremes, like things in the middle probably eventually will be routinized more and more on daily basis. So he's 5, he'll be like 25 in 20 years. Wow.
yeah, I know it's the one of the, I mean, we could talk about the philosophical stuff that's going on as well, because everybody is, but the one of those things about like, one of the things that constantly comes up that in the people that I talk to, and like maybe this is the kind of thing people like us are going to tell each other, but like the
Yeah.
smarter and better educated you are, the more of an advantage you have using these tools.
And
So
also being broadly educated, right? Because
yes.
like let's just say that's a part of our book, but like if you are deeply skilled in one area, no matter which one, who knows, maybe tomorrow LLMs are already at a level that they can do that job. So you need to have multiple deep expertise,
Hmm.
then you are harder to replace, and you have also like a broader understanding of the world problems and solutions.
Exactly. And so for example, like if what you've the one of the analogies that Peter my colleague Peter
Yeah,
uses is that, if he did computer science and psychology, and he's like, if basically what he says to our sort of like college students that we hire is like, you've been trained with an axe to be a woodcutter, and now the chainsaw has been invented.
exactly.
Um, and so what does that change for you? And it's like, well, the better you understand the job of being a tree cutter, a logger or whatever, the better you'll be. But the I mean, you sort of go deeper to that, when people say like, well, you should maybe then do something physical that machines can't do. And it's like, well, is there going to be universal basic income? Because the machines can do everything, if we
Right.
think it like when we're old enough and like, like to be excited that the internet exists, you know,
Yeah.
and but, like what what's 20 years from now in robotics and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And not just that, but like the way our systems are actually designed. Like, are they designed for automated maintenance? rather than human maintenance, the things that are built in the future. So, there's no kind of safe answer.
No,
But the other side of it all is how exciting it all is.
it is exciting.
That people who, like me, for example, I'm the resident non-programmer at Leanpub, so I can do some programming and stuff like that. But now that I've got Claude, I can like the Leanpub has book reviews now.
Wow.
Basically, like with oversight from some very smart people, like I built reviews on
Oh
Leanpub.
wow!
I've
I was
never
wondering why there's no book reviews, and I thought for a good reason, but now I think it
well,
was just
we could talk about that very
yeah,
briefly. So one of the reasons there were no book reviews on Leanpub is Leanpub's kind of complicated, right? Because Leanpub books can be updated anytime, and we encourage
yeah,
people to publish in progress. So if
right.
someone writes a review and they're like, "This book is just one chapter," it's like, well, that's because it's one chapter in and it's being published serially, chapter by chapter. So
Right,
there needs to be kind of messaging to the people who are doing the reviews,
right.
and then imagine you write a review and then someone publishes a new version of their book. How do you handle that? Like, what
Yeah,
from both the
it's
reader and the
similar
reviewer's side.
problem as app stores of different
Yes.
kinds have, right? Because of these incremental updates to software, you need to decide what you do with all the reviews, right? Yeah,
Yeah. So it's very complicated, and it's like, but like it's good
I see the
news. Like,
point. Yeah,
yeah.
but now you build it yourself with the Cloud Code, you said?
Basically, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And the basic idea is, like, very briefly, is that when you publish a new version of your Leanpub book and you do release notes,
Mm,
which means you're announcing to your people who've already bought your book, hey, there's a new version, then that's a reviewable version of your book.
mm.
So you can publish as many updates as you want. Like, I fixed a typo. Don't worry, that's not going to be surfaced to anyone. So when you publish something with release notes, or the first time, people can
Ah,
write a review of it, one review. And then what happens currently with that review is submitted to the author, and the author can accept it if they want to, and then
okay.
it gets published on the book's landing page,
Excellent.
linked to the version
I
of the
see.
book that it was. So they can be like, great book, wouldn't it be awesome if there was a chapter on something or other? So you can publish a new version with that new chapter, and then the same person can publish a new review saying, oh, wow, you wouldn't believe what happened. I submitted a review of this book and wanted a chapter on something, and the author did that. Oh my
All
God.
right.
And you, as the author, can choose what reviews to have on your book landing page. And then the reviewer, if they have a reader membership, they can have a public profile page where their reviews are shown. So
Nice. Pretty complicated. And now it's there, and you said you did it alone. Like the times are changing. Oh my God.
yeah,
Software world.
it's
Yeah.
it's
Wow.
it's incredible. And so partly I've been secretly bringing all of this up to work our way up to the next part of the interview where you talk
Yes.
about your
Sure.
book, 10x Org, powered by Org Topologies. But before we do that,
Yeah. Cool.
just one last thing about you. What is Org Topologies? What's the idea? What does that mean? Who are you and your colleagues, and what do you do?
Right. So we come from the several fields. Like we are software engineers, practitioners. We are also change consultants, especially from the era of agile coaching and agile software development. So we're bringing this expertise of helping to create agile or adaptive organizations, especially with a deep expertise in product R&D. And Org Topologies is this not a framework, but rather a method, an approach to help you better understand what kind of organization you have at hand as a leader and figure out how would you go about changing it, improving it. So, we come from era where there were these many like complicated, heavyweight, so-called agile scaling frameworks like Safe and Spotify, McKinsey, and other
Right.
ideas. And I think people are tired of those frameworks because they are so heavy and they consume so much of the cognitive load of the leaders and the employees that you know you by the time you implement some of the elements of this framework, first of all, you lost lots of time and money and opportunities, but secondly, you actually already forgot like what the problem you were solving. You are focusing on the method, not on the goal. And I've been in many like organizations that were trying to use these heavyweight approaches, safe and others, and you go and you ask people, so what are you trying to improve in your organization? Like a basic question where this all should have started. Like,
Right.
what are you guys doing here? What are you trying to improve? And they name you different parts of the framework, but they have no good clarity on like what's the direction this whole thing going, and like what they want the organization be when it grows up, kind of. And it's not just like regular employees, leaders are confused, so everybody is confused. And of course people will be pulling that org in different direction, and it will be sub-optimized in all possible ways. So org topology is this approach, like meta level approach, that first gives you a very clean language. It gives you a map 2x2 where you can very clearly understand where you are on the map, like how much different skills people are allowed to combine, and at which level of work they do in this, outputs or outcomes. And essentially, it's very easy and very quickly you as a leader or employee can understand like where most of your teams and departments are on this map. And then without using any jargon like agile or schmagile, not any of that, just actually have a human discussion on where we think we need to improve, evolve towards. Should we like give people, should we allow maybe teams to learn and acquire more skills? For example, with AI now, it becomes more feasible than it was before. Or should we move these several teams to actually work closer to the customers on the outcomes instead of just executing some plans? So you can have all these discussions, and then once you're clear on the path, then you can choose a framework or a method as a vehicle to get you there. But like clarity and direction first. So that's in essence the org topologies approach to give you a way to do strategic change management. And then we included 3 different topologies. So org topologies as a method describes 3 common topologies that you likely to have in your org or to want to evolve towards. Resource topology, delivery topology, and adaptive topology are the things that I've seen like a lot in my career. And then we're just limiting the number of choices, like a menu, so the leaders don't get overwhelmed between multiple choices and the discussion becomes super clear and crystal. Like we're going from resource to delivery or to adaptive.
Yeah, when I came across that, I really loved those 3 kind of categories. Resource topology is I'm just looking at it here, maximizing the efficiency of specialized skills.
Right.
Under stable demand, which is you can see the hard won language there. And then delivery topology is maximizing end-to-end flow of predictable work from demand to delivery. And so it's kind of like skills, flow of work, and then adaptive topology is the cost of learning and reconfiguration. So it's like kind of like there's kind of like the things you have available to you, the amount of it, and then the change in it is, I guess, the one way I kind of took away from that, the learning. But I really like the idea of like that adaptation is a layer of thinking that one needs to have, and the idea of having maps to visualize it collectively as a group just is really kind of compelling.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing up these nice, clean definitions. I wonder where actually you found them from. Is it a book or a website? Or
it would be either your book or your website. I don't remember.
Okay, very nice, actually. By the way, very clean definitions. But like, if you go and you ask a leader, like, which ones of these do you want?
Right.
They will say like all of it. Yeah, I want expertise and I want flow, and I of course want to jump on any opportunity. I want to be as agile as possible. And we say, wait a minute, you cannot have a car which is like
Right.
super speedy car, but also you can carry loads, and it's also family friendly. You need to choose and maybe prioritize your wish list. So, and the question is it's actually a super hard question, right? But like, if there would be only one organizational optimizing goal, which one of these would you put as a primary goal? Because if you're putting all of this together, again, you're confused and you're pulling the work in a different direction. And I know it's hard for leaders to accept that they need to choose, but like, imagine how easy a change process would have been if there would be so much clarity. Like, hey, we are here to maximize adaptability. And if everybody understands and accepts the reasons why and how to get there, wow, there would be no need for org consultants like myself, because people would just naturally do it because there will be clarity. So my job is to help to raise these discussions of what you actually are, and what you want, and help them minimize the wish list, and then help them to actually take responsibility for owning that org design, not me consultant, but them, and then improve and experiment on that.
And one of the things that you've done in addition to these awesome maps and topologies and ideas is you've written this amazing book, which is the reason we're here today.
Yeah, finally, let's talk about the book.
Yeah, let's talk about the book. So 10x Org, powered by Org Topologies, a manager's guide to elevating business performance with people and AI.
Yeah.
And so, I guess my first sort of not exactly question, but is like give you an opportunity to explain the book structure. So it's very interesting. It sort of alternates between these kind of stories and these principles. So that's a very interesting structure. And I was wondering if you could take a moment to talk about that.
Yeah. So it was a very creative process, I have to say. And we had been writing the book already with my partner Roland Flam for several years. We had drafted stuff when we were approached by our old, like, lifelong mentor Craig Larman, who had published many books before, and his most famous one is UML book, object oriented stuff, UML. So he was from that camp. And then he had large scale Scrum books. So he had published many books that we actually, that like are on our shelves, desks now. And then he approached me. So one day I received a WhatsApp message like, Alexey, I just found your Org Topology stuff. We know each other, blah, blah. Do you want to write a book with me on that? I'm like, I had to pause myself, shake my hand, like see if it's not a scam or something. But then I said, like, we already read a book with Roland on that, and he's like, oh, okay, I will join you guys because I really like that concept. And like, why he likes it, because essentially he says, yes, there are multiple organizational goals, and there's no one topology better than the others, and let's just make sure managers understand that key concept of org design, and then it will, like, we will improve this world with that. So, but then he said, if I'm writing with you guys, it should also be about AI. And we're like, this is not a book about AI. It's a book about org topologies, right? And we've been doing this. And we knew, like, he was really deep into AI. And he was actually the first person who ever started to talk. And you can find it on YouTube, Craig Larman on YouTube. He was talking and demonstrating GPT 2.0 and 3.0. He was saying, hey guys, automation in development is coming. This stuff is coming way faster than you think. The progress is accelerating. So he was warning all of us. And now he came to us and said, there should be a book about AI. And we're like, yeah, we don't want to, like, jump on a bandwagon of all those AI books that will be there in a month. And then his argument was, he said, imagine you write a book in like late 80s, 90s on management. Would you not include the fact there's internet and it is changing the way management systems operate? Or if you are writing in 50s and 60s, which do not include the invention of computer and its implications on management. And like, yeah, I guess you're right. So we actually had to rewrite everything, but find the way, not to be superficial about AI, but really understand for ourselves the implications of AI on org design and change. Yeah, and you said the book has this mixture of a storyline and theory. So we met for several weeks of like, so we were meeting to have this writing weeks together, the three of us in Munich and Amsterdam, and we all have different styles of writing and thinking about problems, which was like a very fun to watch from the distance, but we all were suffering slightly in this process, but also co-creating. And one day we were walking to like to have some coffee and just discuss how this is going to work. And Craig said, "How about we start with an email of a CEO who is at an AI conference, and she's asking her HR director when they're going to replace people with AI." And I'm like, no, this is not going to work. I'm not writing a business novel because I have no idea how you write business novels. I mean, it's not my expertise. You need to learn about all this like hero development arc and all that. I'm not doing that. I would like to finish that book. Eventually, that's what we got. It's a business novel, but it is cut into like chapters, and we have theory that supports the story in between. So it's like alternating rhythm somehow. And it's an experiment, right? If I were able to write 5 different books and ABC test what works,
Right.
I would have done that. But with book writing, it doesn't work, even with incremental book writing on Leanpub. So we had to make a bet which kind of book we're writing, and that's the book we have now.
Yeah, it's very good, and I really like the idea of alternating between kind of like like I was saying, like this, that like you do between sort of story and principle. And even I'm just looking at it here, of course, at the end of each chapter you have key chapter ideas, which is it's a very interesting thing, because it's clear that like partly the reason to read the book is to be able to discuss it with other people on your team in your organization.
Yeah.
That
So like,
it's not just go read the stories and
yeah,
go off and have your own thoughts, which of course you're supposed to do and you should do and you will do. But
yeah,
to have jointly surfaced talking points to think
yeah.
about, and then have the stories to refer to when you're thinking about it, is a very, very good idea.
Yeah, I think like actually every chapter of the business novel ends with those points, so you can discuss with your colleague, and every theory a bit ends up with a QR code, and you go to a custom chat GPT that knows. So we are writing already in the like deep in the AI era. So what we did, we trained a custom GPT. It knows the entire book. It knows a lot of case studies, material on Org Topologies, and you can just prompt it, and we are given some starting prompts after each chapter. So after each chapter, we would encourage the reader to pause, open up the GPT, and actually have a discussion about that chapter and learn more, or see how those ideas are applicable in the context of a reader. It's not really an interactive book yet. We're not in 2027 or something, but it's one step towards actually using AI as a teacher, not just a doer. A lot of people, back to our programming and automation discussion before, a lot of people see AI as doers to replace some routine activities, but AIs can also be great teachers, right? And we were writing this book in 2025 super actively, and what I would do every morning, I would load the existing like build of a book to my GPT, put on my headphones, and went for a walk in the park to discuss with my smarter friend, like what we're writing and how it lands, and then I would come back and I would know what the next chapter should be written about. And so the AIs can be great teachers for us, even based on the material we gave them.
Yeah, no, that's really fascinating. The GPT is named is it Aiden or Aiden?
Aiden, right?
Aiden, yeah, and it's a very clever idea, and I like the kind of like building a bit of interactivity there with the QR code and stuff like that is very cool. But encouraging people to do a reflective step. But it's interesting. It's very interesting what you say. I mean, just more generally discussing kind of AI and stuff like that as a teacher. I mean, one interesting observation I always try to make to people who are kind of skeptics about this kind of thing is it's like the question I have often for skeptics is like, have you ever experienced scarcity? Like even like have you ever been to a school with only bad teachers?
Uh-huh.
And it's kind of like, oh no, I haven't. So now think about it from that perspective and what it's like to sort of be able to interact with a chat kind of AI or something like that as a teacher and things like that. And often I think people, who might be like, oh, what can I learn from some GPT that I can't just learn on my own or something like that. And it's like,
Yeah,
well,
you would be
but
surprised. Yeah.
it knows the book, but also you can interact with it and it can remember what you said. And it's not going to be like a person, but like it'll be something else and it can be very useful.
And on top of that, right, it knows all the body of knowledge about org design and org change. Because it's like old stuff. It just baked into the LLM. And also you can send it to do a deep research on fresh HBR articles, whatnot,
Right.
and have a discussion how this, like, what's new and how is it relating to the old stuff. So you can have like I don't want to sound rude, but like the best discussions I've had over the last half a year happened with my wife, of course. I have to say that, and with my GPTs. Like, I'm learning so much. I'm thinking aloud so much. I'm being challenged and summarized and reminded about my ideas which I already forgotten. So this is amazing time to be alive, to be active, and to write books, write products. I want to say write software. We don't write software anymore. We build products with AI. So it is amazing to use all this tech almost for free still on a $20 subscription, right? You can 10x yourself.
And speaking of 10x, so just one sort of last thing, I guess, to ask about the book is is there one thing that you and your co-authors hope that people come away from the book having learned or discovered? What would that thing be?
Yeah. So this book has two endings, like a bad, sad ending and a happy ending, and you can choose which one you believe is more realistic in your context. But the happy one, and something that we want people to take away, is that it's not AI replacing people. It's not AI versus people. It is people plus AI, right? We can use that technology and all other technologies to elevate people and elevate our intelligence. And it is not just the technology, our organizations, our org design that we have in our existing orgs, in our existing legacy orgs, it usually limits, it constrains the intelligence of people, human capital we have there. So if you have a very dysfunctional org, which like limits everybody, puts them essentially down, left, bottom part of the map, no matter how much you spread and sprinkle AI licenses, copilots on top, you are not going to get a 10x improvement in anything globally. Everybody locally would start like being faster, but the whole thing would not. So the only way to get any long lasting benefit of this AI investment is to actually first design, then AI, as we say in the book. So first understand your organization and its limitations, uncover where it blocks human intelligence. And once you know how to unleash it, then you can amplify it with artificial intelligence. Probably very basic thoughts, but we wanted to write a book exactly on that because we consult companies with AI adoption and before with agile adoption, and we see how this is not common thinking.
Right. Yeah. No. Thanks very much for that. And it's definitely something that the book helps people kind of come to a realization over time. And again, through these stories, and then this sort of like reflection after each one, I think is just a very powerful way of doing that. And it's like it's when I ask you for the sort of like one sentence summary, it's of course you can give a one sentence summary, but it's actually reading the book that gets you there.
Yeah, I mean the one sentence summary is this one on the cover. It's a question, right? Because we want people to think. And the question is, how do we learn, adapt, and perform to become 10x more impactful and relevant? So this book essentially sends the reader to a journey of rediscovering their own organization, as the heroes of the book, of the business novel, had to discover their organization to really understand. It's a book that perhaps will motivate you to go and talk to your people and see what blocks them, and together find interesting experiments to find answers to that question of how can we be more impactful and relevant in these changing times where everybody can build a startup with 5 Mac minis, and essentially maybe rebuild part of your product overnight. Like what's your value?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Very well said. And in the last part of the interview, I always like to talk to the guest about their book and how they wrote it. So you've already mentioned a little bit about this, the
Yeah.
origin of the book and stuff like that. But just to get into the kind of details, were the three of you kind of like, did you come up with an outline and assign chapters to each other?
Yeah.
Were you like, we all work on Saturday afternoons and tell our families we can't talk to them during like, 1 to 5 or something like that? Was there time structure? Was there
There was,
coordination?
yeah.
How did that work?
You would expect all that from consultants and agile coaches and managers and engineers. We didn't have any of that. Essentially, a very funny collision like emerged in the very beginning of our co-writing. I wanted to have a structure. I have some guitars. So as a bass guitarist, as I am, you want to have a structure. You want to have how many bars is G, how many bars is C. You want to know the structure. And Craig, he said, Alexey, he said, I'm a bottom-up writer. I don't think about this structure. I'm not sure, Len, if you've ever heard this term, bottom-up writer versus
No, I
top-down.
haven't actually heard that before, but I think I get it.
But the guy wrote like many books, including like Large Scale Scrum and other very good, very well-written books. And I'm like, I have to believe him. And Craig, what do you actually mean by being a bottom-up writer? And he says, you know what? Like, don't think about the structure. Like, if you have a good idea for a chapter, go write about it. Go write it. Later on, when you have all these chapters, the structure would emerge eventually. And he said also, like, the forward, the opening, that's the last bit you should be writing. Because you already understand what your book is about, then you can write the opening. Makes so much sense now, but like I'm like, no, I need a structure. So of course, I had 25 different structures, which were all expiring overnight, like my old
Mhm.
times, software requirement documents at my first job, and essentially we just shared a Google document. You won't believe that, and we were just writing and reviewing. In parallel, we would have non-regular calls where we would discuss open questions and chapters and stuff. And then once we got a lot of material, essentially we had to figure out the way how to make it work and how we cut the chapters. Roland reminded me on the previous interview with somebody else, I can't remember anymore who, that actually in October 2025, and the book came out in February. We back in the days, we actually didn't know how many books we were writing. Two
Oh,
or one.
interesting.
So the idea was maybe we do the business novel, like very
Mm.
small and fast, like you can read like on a business flight now from
Right.
Berlin to London, something, and then you would have this field guide for like for practitioners. And I think we even had to Google Documents at some point. And then we said no, we should have one book, and then we kind of mixed and merged and recut, re-edited all the stuff in the book that is currently there, which I think is a better choice. Because it was hard, to advertise and promote and build, even with help of Leanpub, one book. Two books would have been a hassle, and what kind of a message is there if you are going out with? So it's one book, and it has all of it, and of course you need to have it.
Um, yeah, no, that's great, and I know you've had a lot of success on Amazon, getting your book on Amazon, and you mentioned earlier you used our print ready PDF export feature
Yes.
so you write the book on Leanpub and then you can go publish it elsewhere. It's very funny. A lot of people they sort of like surprised that you can use Leanpub to publish
Oh,
books
you
elsewhere,
you
but
you
we
you must use Leanpub, and I'm not joking. It's not my first book on Leanpub. I have a Lean Lego for Scrum
Mhm.
book, which I wrote 7, 8 years ago on Leanpub, and it was a very big success. So I knew your platform and had my subscription since then, and I knew how it worked. I think that's. I mean, I would recommend everybody to use Leanpub, but also then I had to build a lot of automation around it to go
Mhm.
from a Google Doc to Markdown
Right.
with all the footers in a Chicago style with like index in the end. I had
Mhm.
to build my own Google Docs to Markdown generator. With that, with all the checks, rechecks, a double spell checker, Gemini, and everything, it was quite a journey.
Yeah, thanks very much for sharing that. I mean, it's the one of the great things about, Leanpub having so many people who are engineers and software engineers be our authors is
Yeah,
that we get great feedback. We also get people who go and solve their own problems instead of telling us
sure.
sometimes, which is very interesting. Um,
And like in this era where you can just prompt for a software,
yeah.
that's maybe the way to go. Like, don't wait for somebody to make you and like to build that stuff in their product.
Hmm.
If it's not there, just build your stuff around it. And that's how I actually was using Leanpub with the features it has. It offered and build stuff around it. And I mean, it was not a huge project, but if it was before AI, I probably wouldn't even have started that. So AI doesn't just give 10x or 100x. It just gives you chance to do stuff that before you were not even thinking of
Yeah.
doing and coding. Because I was like coding the infrastructure for the book publishing, and I was writing the book at the same time
Hmm. Hmm.
into different windows on my Mac.
Yes, I know. Yeah, it's a very interesting time. Um, I guess on that note, the last question I always like to ask, which I may have to ask a different way going forward, is but if when you're using Leanpub as an author, if there was one thing, one magical feature we could build for you, or if there was one thing that's always had you shaking your fist, going, "Damn you, Leanpub, this sucks so bad. Why is this stupid problem persisting over time that we could fix for you?" Is there anything that you can think of that you would ask us to do?
Um, Not from the top of my mind, but maybe if you give me 1 minute to think aloud about
Oh,
it,
sure
I will
thing.
come up with something. But so we published on Leanpub, Google Playbook,
Right.
Apple Books, Amazon, IngressSpark, Kobo, some local Dutch thing, and something else. And I have to say, Leanpub offers the smoothest experience. The worst experience you would surprise was Apple. like it's
Yeah,
a
Apple
I have
Books.
Apple
Yeah,
gadgets all over my
me
room,
too.
Mac
Yeah.
Mini, two phones, a laptop, a monitor. Like for the users, it's great. For partners, like backend is terrible. It took us 2 months to validate our ID with them to get payments. Like it was like a disaster on all aspects. So I don't know. They need to learn how you guys do that. But so Leanpub is very quite smooth and all that. You're not like one thing, if I can wish, but I think that maybe against your business model. So that's why I never emailed you about that. I think with via API, you could just build a preview, but you cannot publish via API. That was the at least this state and in February. So I could generate any previews I want as PDF, and I was doing that. I would have like a continuous delivery pipeline. I would write a chapter, click a button, it will download it from Google Doc, make a markdown, add all the footers, checks, and then I would call and your guys API, and I would get a preview PDF. My script would download it and run the test on it. That was my continuous integration pipeline, and then I would detect some issues in the PDF, and I would have to go back to one of the previous stages to fix them. But I don't think I can actually publish directly, get the final PDF on or update the web the Leanpub landing. I have to do it all only manually.
So thank you very much for sharing that. That's very interesting. So we have done some updates in the last couple of
Yeah.
months. There definitely is, like I've been looking at our API docs here right now. There definitely is supposed to be a publish prompt,
All right. So
a command.
either I didn't find it or it was not there.
No, I think that might be new.
But I think it's new, and I also know you guys were changing the website while I was like, damn, Leanpub hadn't changed for 10 years. Why these guys need to update it right in the middle of my writing? You guys like it was like, but I know why, because you got Opus 4.5 and you could just finally, I guess, use AI.
Well, no, so we did for anyone listening. So in sort of like mid-December,
Yeah.
we launched what we call V3. So we'd basically been working on a big update.
And it's so beautiful. I have to say, it's so beautiful.
Oh, thank you very much for sharing. We really appreciate that. I'll share that with the team.
Nice.
We appreciate that. But we've been working on basically an update to Leanpub in a very non-lean way for like years. And it was one of those things where we're a very small team, and it's like we just need to hit the button and do it.
Sure,
We just need to hit the button and do it. And we knew it would be in the middle of some people's writing cycles. We knew it would be in the middle of some people's like marketing cycles and stuff like that. We had, there was, I remember one person like, why would you do this in December? And it's like, well, if we'd done it in July, someone would have been complaining about that month too. And but like, we were sensitive to the, interest of the authors and stuff, but it just kind of had to be done. And yes, and there were, I mean, I had to kind of like, in order to answer kind of emails from people about issues, I was like, kind of like, I remember being on like a stinky bus, kind of like using my foot to keep my computer plugged in, kind of tethering from my phone to kind of answer emails, because like it was so important to us to kind of see what the issues were and stuff like that.
But you guys were great. You were responding. I think we exchanged like 20 emails about different issues and ideas. So you were a very responsive, adaptive topology. You guys are.
Is that us? Okay.
I have to say. But like you broke my development build pipeline, and then I had to go semi-manual. But like one thing, you like back to your question, right? Like I don't know, like I really want to go from Google Doc or like Markdown completely to like the full end cycle automation. I think some people would appreciate that. And now you're saying that the stuff is there already, or I missed that before.
Well, yeah, there's a published kind of thing in the API. So thanks very much for that. But yeah, when it comes to Google Docs, we actually used to have a kind of Google Docs integration where you could write in Google Docs and link it to Leanpub. And it was like, it's kind of like, I don't need to tell you, but once you're working with some third party tool, then you're contingent on their decisions and stuff like that, and
Right.
then that can become very complicated, and then you kind of get, not to get in the weeds, but you get support questions for their product,
Yeah.
and it's kind of like, oh my goodness, like that's like, people think you say they want it and stuff like that, but like, it's and also on that note, like when it comes to things, you know when it comes to the big companies that we all, I'm on an Apple monitor using an Apple computer, blah blah blah. I ordered something from Amazon yesterday, but
Yeah.
like those big companies don't like their books businesses. They don't like them.
No,
Uh,
I agree. Yeah. So it was
and
a
so that's why
disaster.
they don't work very well. They kind of don't care. It's kind of like historical reasons that they're in that business at all.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And apparently we actually have like a paperback and a hardcover. And I think you can also look into workflow. How would you do it actually with Leanpub? Because there's some manual step there. You need to put the right ISBN actually for the PDF generation. So
Yeah.
uh,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. That's something we're working on as well.
But man, like I didn't ever wanted to know so much about publishing business as I had to learn during this project. But now I think I know more than I want. And somebody actually asked me recently if I can help them to publish a book because I still remember like
Oh,
how to do it. So I might actually go it and guess how I'll do it. I'll do it via Leanpub
yeah.
because
Well,
that's
thank you very much for that, and thank you for using our platform and for all your kind words, and all your emails, and over time, because that's the reason Leanpub is what it is interacting with, smart determined people like you
Thank
and your
you.
co-authors. So, Alexey, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me and to talk to all of us on the Leanpub podcast. The book is 10x Org, powered by Org Topologies. How do we learn, adapt, and perform to become 10 times more impactful and relevant? It's a very good book. You can read it on the plane.
Thank you so much.
It might be a long flight, maybe 2 flights.
Yeah, it's a bit of a
But it definitely rewards kind of sustained attention over time, and it's a very good book, and it's very timely. So
well,
thank you very much, Alexey, for being on the podcast.
thank you so much for having us on your platform and me on your podcast.
Thanks.